What's going on, everybody? This is Justin with Me, Myself, and Die, coming at you with the second video of our holiday gift giving guide. The first video was about solo games and some great solo content. If you want to check that out, boop, video right there. But this video is all for the painters, or for all of those curious about painting. This is going to be a gift giving guide for those that have never painted before, to those who have just started, to those who have been painting and just want some cool ideas about how to get some gifts that take it to the next level. I've really just been impressed with how our community is growing, both with seasoned painters and with people who during this COVID crisis have gotten into solo gaming and also wanted to start painting some. But first we have to do the disclaimer. This is not a sponsored video, but I will leave Amazon affiliate links for everything that I mentioned that I could find at Amazon and any other links to anywhere else. I'm not sponsored by anybody, but the Amazon links are an affiliate program. So if you buy through that and you click on that Amazon link and purchase something, then I do get a cut of that. And that will go back to making this channel better and growing it more and just upping the quality in every way as we grow. And we are growing so fast. But I do encourage you, our small businesses are really hurting right now. And if you have a friendly local game store or a hobby store that sells painting supplies for miniature painting, if you could help them out, please go to them first. And only if then you can't and you want to buy through Amazon, then please click the links below, and it just helps the channel out and doesn't cost you a single dime. So the first thing that I suggest, let's start with those who are asking, how do I get into painting? What do I buy? I have two suggestions for you. Pick whichever one you think best suits you. I have the Vallejo Model Color Set starter, and I have the Army Painter starter set. Both are great values and both offer you a little something different. The Vallejo Model Color Set is going to give you a better range of colors. You're just going to have more to work with there. Whereas the Army Painter gives you just your basic colors, but gives you a metallic and gives you a wash. So it's kind of a trade-off there. You can work, I mean, they're primary colors. You can mix any color you want using just the primaries. Now, why do I suggest the Vallejo or the Army Painter over Citadel? Well, when you're getting started, this is a lot better than this. These things like to be knocked over. You have to open the thing, dip a brush in, and put it on a palette. And when you're learning to mix colors or learning how to thin your paints, dropper bottles are accurate. You can get 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 drops out of this, whereas you get how many scoops out of this, and this is exactly what. So when you watch videos and you're learning to paint and somebody says a 2-to-1 ratio, well, you know what the 2-to-1 is. The 2 drops to 1 drop of water, or 1 drop of medium to 3 drops of paint. It's just a lot more accurate, a lot more controllable, and I feel like you use less paint with this. And that could just be my mindset, but I feel like I just use a lot less paint with these. So yeah, Vallejo Model or the Army Painter is what I would start with. So the next question I usually get is, well, what brushes do I use? What are the expensive brushes I need to buy? You don't need to buy expensive brushes. I started out with the Army Painter set of 3 brushes, and I still use them. It comes with a dry brush. It's a nice size, it's a good angle, and it works really well for dry brushing. It's going to get you those highlights that you want when you use a dry brushing technique. It gives you a nice fine detail brush that is really good for the finer highlights, for edge highlighting, and for if you want to try eyeballs. This is what you're going to need. But it also gives you your workhorse. They call it the regiment brush. I believe it's a number 2 size. It looks bigger than a 1, but this is going to be your basing brush. This is going to be your first and second and third highlight brush. You can use it as a wash brush. That's fine. It's not going to hurt it. I would use something else for metallics because they will ruin this brush pretty quickly. But yeah, and what I like about these brushes for beginners is, if you can see that, is triangular. And so it's comfortable in your hand as you're learning to steady your hand and how to, like, I put my finger against the handle that I'm using to steady myself. As you're learning what works for you, this gets really comfortable in your hand. And I still reach for this. Although I may have moved on to Winsor & Newton's or Rosemary and Company brushes for a lot of my painting, I still reach for an Army Painter fine detail brush. It is very comfortable in my hand and just gets the job done. So this is a great little, not expensive 3-pack of brushes that's gonna do 99% of the work for you. So the Army Painter brush set. So along with that, something that I encourage all painters to get is the mixing balls, the stainless steel mixing balls. This is what I have. Now this is probably about 200 of them. It's probably all I ever need, and I have them in a nice little spice jar where I can just get them in and out really easily without spilling everywhere. And the link I have is for the Army Painter brand. Now, I'm not trying to push Army Painter at all, but I have been burned on these before. I have gotten the 100 counts of these mixing balls cheap off of Amazon that were just a no-name brand, and I put a couple of them in a small little jar with some salt water for 2 days, and they were rust. And that's what's going to happen if they're not pure stainless steel balls and you put them in a paint. They're going to rust and they're going to ruin your paint. So I do typically go with the Army Painter because they're guaranteed to be 100% stainless steel. So what you do every time I get a new paint, I open it up, take a pair of pliers, pull that off, put 2 in there, put everything back together, and I shake it up. And then I put a dot of what the paint is on the top, and that tells me when I look at my racks of paint, I organize them by Roy G. Biv and then shades, so I know exactly what that color is going to be, because these paints will separate and you'll have a darker color here and a lighter color here, and neither one are going to actually match what the color is going to be once it's shaken up, painted, and dried. So that's a suggestion. 2 mixing balls in it, and I even do 2 mixing balls, even more so in this. You can actually hear it in there because it's wider. It's got a tongue into it that tries to scoop up paint, but usually just gets in the way of mixing. So it really gets through that thicker paint. And going along with the theme of mixing, this is more for, I would say, people who are serious about painting, who have to get, 10 bottles of paint out on a project, or doing full armies or multiple batch paintings, and you end up having to shake and shake these for 2 minutes, even with the mixing balls in it, and you still squirt it onto your palette and it's still mostly medium before you ever get to the paint. Well, I bought a vortex mixer. Yep, put it right there. I didn't want to unplug mine, sorry. It's a big hassle to get behind my desk to unplug it. But it's made for labs and test tubes. It's expensive, but it's actually reasonably priced for what it is. It has totally changed how I paint, because I take my paint, you press it on there, and it starts to vibrate it and go in a centrifugal force motion to make the balls spin in here. And you actually, as the paint loosens up, you'll actually hear it spin in there, and it really mixes up that paint. 30 seconds on that as opposed to 2 minutes of shaking by hand. It saves your hands, it saves your wrists, it saves your arms, and it ensures that when you get that paint out of that bottle, that it is well mixed. And then add to it those mixing balls. I mean, it's just pure gold. 20, 30 seconds, it really just cuts down on your time of painting and allows you to get to doing more of the enjoyable part, which is the painting. So the Vortex mixer, I highly suggest it. It's great. I would have put a cheaper one on there, but this is the one I own, and the other ones didn't have as good of reviews. So this one's been solid. I've had it for a year, and it still goes strong. Now, for veterans and beginners alike, if you don't own a wet palette, then you don't know all that you can do with painting. I switched over to a wet palette about a year ago, and it really changed. I was using ceramic soap dishes, and I still use them for metallics and some washes. I'll put that on the ceramic soap dish, just a cheap little soap dish. But I switched over and started doing a do-it-yourself wet palette. Now you can make your own. You get a shallow lid or a shallow container, usually Tupperware, and you put a wet paper towel in it and just cut some parchment paper and put it on top. So if you want to try a wet palette, try that first. That's a great idea. But you can't do gradients like I did on the Red Guard painting video, link right there. You can't do gradients like that because your thin paints will dry out so fast. These are made to be thin and dry out quickly. So you actually waste more paints not using wet palette. A wet palette will keep your paints wet longer. They will help keep the consistency and keep them hydrated. And so I suggest if you really want to buy one, you don't have to spend a lot of money on one. I didn't really like the white Stay Wet palette or whatever it's called. I have that one. It's just a little too tall for how I dip. So I got, again, Army Painter. It's making some good stuff. They're not even my favorite paint brand, but they're making some good stuff. This wet palette, I really like this one. One, it's got an elastic band that goes around it. And then you have your bottom part, you put the sponge in it. It comes with 2 sponges. I've only used one, and I've used it for about a year now, and I'm still using it. I haven't even opened the second one. You can buy recharge packs for these, but again, I haven't needed to. So you put your sponge in there, you wet it, and it does come with special paper. I still use parchment paper. I think I've used one of their pieces of paper, but still just cut parchment paper to size, put it in here, and I can put the lid back on, seal it tight, and it'll keep my paint dry for 1 or 2 sessions, usually even 1 day if I need it to. What I really like about this one is the second layer is a tool holder where I can put my brushes. Usually I keep my tweezers, I keep some dry brushes, I keep this little safety X-Acto knife, sliding X-Acto knife in there. And when sometimes I'll just go outside and paint, I'll grab this, throw some brushes in here, and walk outside and paint. It's fantastic. It's small, it's compact, and I just really like it. And a wet palette is, if anything off of this list, besides getting started and getting some paints and getting some brushes, if there's anything off this list I would suggest more than anything to change your game or take you to that next level, is get a wet palette. So one tip that I give a lot of people about dry brushing is go cheap. Not everything in this hobby has to be expensive. This is what I keep my brushes in. I have one labeled dry here. If you look, these are all makeup brushes. They're cheap makeup brushes. My favorite one is actually this little pink one. I like the slope of it. It's got a rounded head. I've actually used it a lot, but they're very soft and they're very reactive and springy. So when you get that dry brush action for your highlights, these cover a lot more area. And I've got ones that are round. I've got ones, this is basically the same as that Army Painter that I showed earlier, that sloped edge, but it's a little bit thicker. A cheap set of makeup brushes. I've got a link to what I think is a good value down below for 10 bucks, and you get all kinds of shapes and sizes. These are fantastic. And the last couple of things I want to mention and bring to your attention are just things that I've found that are just fun to have and have just helped me broaden my painting and look at it in different ways. So the first thing is, well, you saw how I store my brushes. I have these nice little jars that are just full of brushes, and I realized how much time I was wasting trying to find the right brush that I wanted in this. Now I still use it, but I've moved to this little guy, cheap on Amazon. It is a brush holder. I have my brushes, my nicer brushes, I put in there and they're ready to go, and I keep the tip protectors on them and they're safe. And they're just there, easy to grab, easy to see. I can see what size they are, what brand they are, whatever I need to see. I can grab the ones I use the most quickly. What's really cool about this is that because I keep the tip protectors on my good brushes, it has a little catch tray. I just throw them down there and it catches them right there in those grooves. Really smart design. But even smarter, one of the worst things you can do when you're painting is throw down a brush flat on the ground. This design has this little extension in it. Now this little extension lays flat, and I just gently put my brushes down at a slight angle. Keeps me from ruining a good brush, and it also keeps my work surface from having paint all over it. So that little brush rack is fantastic. The last two things are to encourage you to get involved with the community. There's at least a dozen mini painting groups on Facebook that I'm a part of, and they're great for asking questions. They're great for getting feedback, learning new things, getting suggestions, all kinds of things. But there's one rule of thumb: show your work. I really changed my game by breaking out my product photography box, an LED light box. The one I'm linking to is different than mine, but it's a lot cheaper, and it's by a great company, Neewer, who I use a lot of their stuff in my professional life. Great company, making great and affordable photography gear. And this is a very affordable light box right there, LED light box. You sit it in there and you can get, even with your phone, you can get some fantastic detailed pictures of your miniatures. Because the key to photography is not a good camera as much as it is good light. And these LED lights in there will just brighten everything up. And what I liked about this one is not only is it inexpensive, it's also a good brand. I know it's going to hold up for you, but it comes with several different color backgrounds. So you can get creative, you can change it up. And that's just really cool. You'll like playing with it. A lot of people will get these smaller ones and just leave them out. I have one that I have to keep packing up because I don't have a dedicated space to leave it. But it really just changes a lot of things. So that LED light box, product light box, is that size, is going to be great for miniatures. And I highly, highly suggest it. But to go along with that, just something that's really fun. What if you don't want to take pictures, but you want to take some videos? Maybe do a little loop on Instagram? Yeah, got you covered. This cheap little turntable, I use this all of the time. It's simple on and off, not much to it, but the size is fantastic for miniatures. And that means not having to take a picture of the front and the back of your miniatures. You can just set it on this and let it spin around a couple times. I do that for all of my videos at the end. And it's just a really good way to show off your work, let people see it, give you that really good feedback. You put it in that light box and you're going to get color accurate photos and videos where people can give you really accurate feedback. And those two combined are fantastic. And what's cool is you can get small pieces of acrylic to go on here. I even have a mirrored surface to go on here. And this has a nice matte finish. I've even gotten scrapbooking paper that looks textured like cobblestones or rust stained metal. Cut a circle out of that and put it on here, and it's just, you can be creative with the variety. This really just helps you get involved in that community, let you have fun with taking pictures, because that's usually a hard part for people to do, is take really good pictures of their minis. The last shout out I want to give is, just because people ask me, this is not an Amazon link, is my basing stuff. You've seen it, I always have it listed. The Geek Gaming Scenics basing, this is one I haven't opened. They'll come like this, double bagged in case it gets spills or anything. This one is Grimdark City Rubble. I thought, this is very black. I know it's really hard to see through this. Black rubble I thought would be really good for some lava or some burnt dungeon kind of bases. So I have 6 of their mixes. I have loved every single one of them. They're easy as gluing and dipping, but you could also, my daughter likes to mix and match rocks out of them and do some little creative placements on that, and we have a lot of fun doing that together. So that is Geek Gaming Scenics. That'll also be linked down below. So that's my quick list of good painting gifts to give or to get for this holiday season. And hopefully I've hit something that is for everybody, and maybe you found something you haven't thought of, or something new that you want to try, or something that just tickles your fancy. If you have any suggestions, I want this to be a community experience, leave it in the comments below. If you have any questions, leave those in the comment section as well. And if you enjoyed this content, think about hitting that like button, smashing that subscribe, and tapping that bell icon so you're notified when the next video goes up. Again, thank you so much for getting us not only to 100 subscribers, but to 160. We've had over 100 subscribers in the last 28 days. And that just, again, I am so humbled. You are helping build a fantastic community of warm, welcoming people that are positive and uplifting, and I am just enjoying that so much. And I am honored to be a part of that, and to create something to give back to everyone. As always, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy gaming.